guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and now I want to talk to you about the benefits of being an introvert. And this is a question from the idea pool, but in general there has been this trend, I would say, the last years of, introverts are awesome and it's so great being an introvert and you don't have to be an extrovert and so on, which is very good because normally if you have like a suppressed minority, you always need some time for that minority to kind of like over dominate for a while, that there's like some kind of revolution, so you can really create a balance between everybody. For example, till this day, the biggest minority which has been suppressed is women worldwide, but we've seen it with everything. But let's say in the 70s or in the 60s, when the whole feminist movement came up, there was this huge protest wave and so on, and a lot of things happened which were necessary for kind of to create a little bit more of balance. And I think this is what has happened for introverts the last year, rather quietly, how introverts are, but there's definitely been movement in that area, and it's become a topic. It's not that difficult anymore to find other people who talk about it, who feel okay being an introvert and so on. And it's become more and more accepted. And I think there are a lot more jobs and opportunities and so on for introverted people, especially if you think about it, that we are ourselves more open to those possibilities. Because before, I think there was a lot of this, you have to have, a job in a corporate, in the corporate world. You have to be, very outgoing and talking to a lot of people and creating great networks in order to be successful. And now, especially through the internet and through the possibility of globalization and connecting with people who actually benefit from what you can offer as an introvert, it's become much easier. But you have to open your eyes. But in general, I don't like saying, those are the benefits when you're an introvert and those are the benefits when you're an extrovert. Of course they are, but mainly what you're striving for is to create the best thing for you. And since we are introverts, we have to think about what can we do in order to take advantage of all our introverted traits, and what things, are easier because we're introverts. But if, I can, for example, of course it is easier for me to kind of see hidden meanings. It's easier for me to understand why somebody is mad, or, there's a higher sense of self-awareness than most extroverts. This is one of those points which is definitely, and you've seen it in a lot of literature, which is one of the main benefits of being an introvert. It's much easier for introverts in general, like overall, we don't want to, it's not for everybody like this, but generally for introverts it's easier to look into oneself, to be okay with being alone and really feeling that void and everything that comes with silence, and then really through that finding our own way. Those are, let's say, benefits. But those benefits, either, there are also benefits when you're an extrovert. For example, when you're an extrovert, it's much easier for you to attain those things you actually want, because we all have needs. If you're an introvert or extrovert, we all have personal needs that we have to be aware of, as in some people need freedom, other people need security, other people need, I don't know, to be understood, other people need to feel needed. And on top of everything, we have that in so many different areas. And I don't, being INFJ is so not specific enough to say, okay, so everybody who's an INFJ needs security in that area and freedom in this area and so on. That's not the case. That's not the case. There's so many more specifics, but the common things kind of help us to get a better structure of how we are and what we need. But let's scroll back just a little bit. So As I said, when you're an extrovert, it's much easier to get those things you need, because you make your needs more known. The difference is that extroverts are not really that aware what their needs are. For introverts, sometimes our needs are also we're not that aware. Like I feel like sometimes I kind of like lie to myself. But what I have seen is, for example, one of my biggest needs is really to be of service, and to be of service as in helping other people get a better understanding of their life, being okay with who they are, and so on. And I do not think that what I need very specifically is what every other INFJ needs. I really don't believe that. I think by me going after those things that I need and getting my needs fulfilled more with proactively, I can be much more of a mirror to others, and therefore they can feel their own needs much more and really attack those things. That's why I personally have had so many issues with people in general that came close to me and then just completely backed away. This is such a common thing, and I see how those people then start to really work on themselves and really go for those things they want. And those things are completely different. For some, it's going into more altruistic things. For others, it's more being more competitive. For others, it's going more into artistic realms. But these are those things that I evoke in other people by getting my own needs met and by helping myself become whole. So so if you're an introvert, if you're an introvert, you do have like needs as like every extrovert has, different ones, but you have them, and it's sometimes easier to kind of understand what you want, especially when you're alone, when you kind of like really take that time out and really be by yourself and let as little external influence in. That's when you kind of realize, okay, this is what makes me happy, this is what I need. So for example, if you are in you go into a cabin for a week by yourself, first off, that would be probably impossible for most extroverts because it would just drain them too much. For us, it's a good thing since we don't have those external vibes. We're much more sitting with our own vibes, and we feel the void, and we can feel where that void is. So for example, for me, when when I'm in these situations and I feel alone, or not alone, but I feel like, okay, now I'm getting to like really the groundwork, the existential stuff, like my real needs. And then I see how much I need stability on the one hand, that I need to be in a secure environment, but I also need I need to like release something. For me, it's always about releasing. I do it through music, I do it through art and so on, but this is me. I feel like since I always want to take on so much responsibility for certain things, that, and that I put a lot of burden onto myself. And since I do that, I need something to release that. And when I sit there by myself and have the possibility, I really know, okay, now I have this impulse to release something, to kind of like put something out there, to something, take some kind of energy and put it out, because I've just like taken so much in, and this is like, I think very specifically for INFJs, because we take in so much, no matter what it is, and our thing is to release it. And this releasing part is, and asking for what we need, that is the extroverted part of us. That is what we need to learn, and this is what we need to, in order to help ourselves to become whole. Because the more you can kind of do on your own in order to become whole, the less you project on other people, the more you help for other people to live their truth. Because the longer I think about it, the more I live in this realm, I realize how different we all are. We have so different understandings of life and perceptions, and we live in such different realms. And yes, there are of course points where we overlap, which we have, for example, with INFJs very much so. Nevertheless, we still live in different like mentally in different spheres. We have, we have this, what we have in common is that we take a lot in, and we need to find a way to release that. And this is where extroverts have a natural, they're naturally better at this, or have more practice in it. To kind of like ask for what they want, to control the environment, and to get what they need. And for us, it's very often a thing of, well, first off, we don't think we have the right to ask for so much, or we think we don't have the strength to ask for so much, or we don't know how to ask for that. But those are all those extroverted qualities that we need to develop. Extroverts, on the other hand, very often know how to do that. That's why we so often look at extroverts and have like this urge, that person is so cool, or so like they're so happy and so on. But what happens with them is they just have this impulse of, oh, I need to get this to release, like to feel better, to get like my needs met. But since they're more on they don't go that deep, they don't see why they do it. They don't see that actually they have this urge to release anger right now, because on a very deep level, they're not living the life that they're meant to be, that they meant to live. They're not living in the sphere where they would actually feel at home at. And for extroverts, very often it's the thing of, being pushed down, being forced to be introverted, being forced to kind of like quiet their mind so they can feel this pain inside of them. And that's for extroverts, even a harder thing than it is for us introverts, because on top of everything that they need to go inside and be confronted with their emotions, they are drained by it, because they actually gain they gain things through when they go into the environment. For example, as I said, extroverts have learned how to get their needs met by being extrovert, by talking to people, by controlling the environment. And this is what they're more adapt to. This is what they naturally are better at. But that does not mean that this part is something what extroverts need and not what introverts need. We actually need both. We need to be introverted enough to understand what our deepest emotions are, or what our deepest needs are, and then also learn that extroverted part in order to get those needs met. Like really to go out there and create a path that will give you those things. So when I have, for example, this urge to always be of service, that gives me a feeling of worth. This gives me a feeling of being needed and so on, of being beneficial and so on. And yes, you can look at it as, and deep down you should be enough on your own and so on, but this is how deep I could have gone. Like, this is how deep I got. I got to a point where I felt like, okay, I was doing so many things to get that need of mine fulfilled, to feel useful, that I was actually punishing myself and taking on things that made me unhappy as well. I did that. So I needed to learn that there are things, my biggest need is actually really to help somebody and to be of benefit, and to do it on that, like in that specific way that I teach, or that I kind of spread out a message. But this is just me. This is what I mean. But the introvert, what is like the same for introverts, is sometimes that they go so deep into this that they have some huge trauma involving this, because they actually crossed boundaries and did things that are not good for them just to get that need met. They did things that they either hurt other people or they hurt themselves because they needed to get this need met. And so once you're like kind of aware of this, that you need this, and then that you need to push that away which you are holding on to so much, then you need to find a way, an extroverted way, to get that need met. And it's not just one thing. We have so many different needs, but We have to find like a balance between how deep can you go inside and really understand what you need, and then to kind of try to create that on your own. Because we tend to, especially with INFJs and also with INFPs, who have like a huge imagination, we tend to create a world in real life, like something we think we project something into reality, or we have this self-denial thing going on in order to get our needs met. For example, if somebody's treating you badly, I had the self-denial thinking, oh, poor them, and they're so sensitive, and apparently somebody hurt them so much in their life, and you know, they're such angels and so great of people because they are so sensitive, because they haven't learned to deal with it. And I idealized those people, and I idealized them because that was, you know, the only way I could deal with reality. Because back then, you know, this whole thing started with, you know, my parents, my father, for example, and I had to use my imagination and tell myself, well, he doesn't know any better, or, you know, I had to make some kind of thing up in my mind, because especially as a child, you're not strong enough to face the reality that your parent is not nurturing you or caring for you, and they're actually like burdening you, which is a hard reality for a child, no matter what, you know, what's going on. So you kind of create this illusion of, yeah, well, those are such great people, and so on, in order to allow yourself to nurture them, to take care of them. And then you especially go for people who do have problems. Like, I've seen it with so many INFJs, and with me myself, like, as well. Normal people who are healthy, who are actually would really give me some kind of comfort and security in my life, for the longest time I ignored them. They were too boring for me. I was going for the, you know, for the people with the psychological problems who actually needed me. But the problem is that I wasn't so, my extroverted traits weren't as developed. So of course I looked for people who are the closest to me, who kind of like come into my space, and I like kind of save them by them coming into my space, because I wasn't strong enough to kind of like go out and do those things on my own, or do like some kind of like really be proactive and go and do something. But the truth is, you have all those qualities in you. You can do what I do. Like, you don't understand how big of a transition it is for me to now maybe sometimes make like 3 videos a week and talk to you and so on. When I started this, it was such a burden for me to make a video every other, like all 3 weeks. And every time I needed to, you know, motivate myself and keep going and keep going. It was so hard, because this is an area that I haven't done, like that I haven't gone yet mentally. Something extroverts are more, you know, used to. And as I said, this is just my thing. Like, I really don't think that it's for everybody to spread messages like this, to make videos like this, to, you know, all kinds of things. Like, for other INFJs, art is so much more important, and to express, like, to kind of create beautiful art. I use art to release myself. I use art to kind of like let go of that which is too much for me. So don't think you have to be like that person, or you have to be that like that. You will see that you will be very, very individualistic when you kind of find like a way to really express yourself. And once you're there, you don't feel like, oh, that person is so great and I wish I was that person, or, you know, I wish I was like that person, because it will be so, you will know that this is not the path for you. And so don't get confused in that direction. But the point is that once I realized that I can't do this, like I have this urge and my needs, and I can't have them met by my closest people, because their needs who have a higher priority. And I needed to understand, what is my highest priority? Yes, I want to help people and I want to be beneficial, but if there's too much you know, if somebody's attacking me, if I don't have like peace around me and I haven't created boundaries, I can't live. Like, I'm just dying. It's like, this is just too much for me to bear, because I, in general, take on so much mentally. I like absorb everything. So when I let people that close to me, in order to be, you know, have this need of mine met, that I'm beneficial, and those people are so like messed up at that moment that they hurt me too much, I can't function. And so I needed to find a way where I can have both, where I have peace around me for the closest people, and then I have this need that I have to being beneficial, met more on a, you know, professional level, or more on a way that doesn't affect me so personally. Because, for example, I love to help. You know, those are topics I do constantly, and I really like. But, you know, I don't have my intimate partner, or, you know, my best friend or so on, who I'm actually allowing so deep into my sphere, and allowing them to hurt me so much, and helping them. But I do it in a way where I still have my boundaries. So everybody who wants to come close to me, like really close to me, they have to really obey those rules. They have to be calm, they have to be okay, and if they're not, I'm gonna show them, no, I'm not having that. But at the same time, I can do this on a more extroverted way. And so this is why it's so important, although we have those benefits, you know, that come with being introvert, which are to kind of realize easier what we really need, to also develop that extroverted part. And in the beginning, it's like this. You imagine you are you're like a ball which is filled with you know, something, I don't know. Let's say this is like a huge chocolate ball, for example, and the whole left side, which represents the introverted part, you've already, like, you're in the middle and you've already eaten that part out, and then you can go into all this area, and it's really easy for you because there's already like a hole and you can move there. But what you need is that extroverted part, and especially in the beginning, it's so hard to go there. And this is what I meant with in the beginning of the videos, when I said that it was so hard for me in the beginning, because in the beginning you have to like kind of carve that out. You have to carve out all those aspects and learn, and it's very difficult because it's like a block, and it's so hard, and you take a little and you take a little, and you know, and then you eat it and so on. Let's say it was chocolate, just as a metaphor. But after a while, after you've like created this also a hole in that area, it's also much easier to go in that sphere, you know. And then, you know, those introverted areas of yours, you can still use them as often. I actually use them much more often than I used to. I love being alone. I love, you know, reading and learning all those things, but it's a choice. That's the difference. It's a choice, because I can also go into the extroverted world. But if you don't have another choice but to stay left, and then somebody comes and pushes you and you keep going into the left, into the introverted sphere, at some point there's no more room. And you don't know what to do. So the only choice is for you to like do that what is really painful in the beginning, which is to carve that extroverted part of yourself. And so once you do that, you can go left and you can go right, and this helps you to become whole. This helps you to like create this whole thing, because you have everything you need inside. You just need to like go out and ask for it. And once you realize that you have no other choice, and that then you kind of change your belief system, then you're more willing to do that and to go and ask for it. So first off, look what kind of things you allow in your life, what you need, how you want other people to perceive you, what makes you feel good, and then understand, how can I get that, maybe not through my closest people. Like, how can I get that with like things in a more professional way? It doesn't have to be your job, but you can do it in your free time. You can do it on a more hobby way, and you can find it in your city, but you can also find it online. Just kind of think about what kind of area helps me, and then surround yourself with people who are more like that. For example, let's say you want to be a carpenter, or you want to be a florist, or you want to be somebody who's you know, more into sports or whatever it is. If you watch more videos that concern those things, if you surround yourself and you talk with people who are more like this, you feel much more at home. It's easier. You allow yourself to really allow yourself to have those needs and to be okay with it. Because I think so often we're just not, we're so ashamed of our needs. We're so ashamed of our needs to feel strong. Like, I have this need to feel strong. I have this need to be in control of some things, and I have this need to guide people and to do things in my way, and I definitely have the need of freedom. And I was, for the longest time, very ashamed of those things because I thought they weren't feminine, or they weren't what people wanted, and so on. And I felt that because I allowed other people to come that much into my space, that what was right for them became right for me, because I filled myself up with them. I absorbed everything. And then, I felt, oh God, I want to have freedom, but wanting freedom is a bad thing. And I thought it was a bad thing because that person didn't need freedom, and I was feeling their stuff too much. So understand, yes, there are benefits from being an introvert, but that does not mean that being an introvert and not going into the extroverted side will give you complete satisfaction. How exactly, if you're an extrovert and just staying in that extrovert room and never going inside, will never give you true satisfaction. It has to be a combination, and once you really tackle those things, it is very difficult in the beginning, but it does get much easier. Okay, so this is on the benefits of being an introvert, and talk to you soon. Bye.